Wow, talk about stirring up a hornet's nest. Who would have thought that one book, just 1 year shy of 40 years old, this book right here, Turmoil in the Toy Box, would be making the attempt to cause me grief all these decades later. Not just years, but decades. And blowing up my little old email address? Stay tuned. The Bygone Hunter here, and welcome to Yesteryear and Beyond, the X Shorts, Episode 3. Okay, as you saw in the cold open, I am not kidding here. I cannot believe that the brief comments that short that I did on this book right here, Turmoil in the Toy Box, I cannot believe. And it wasn't a whole lot, really. There was only a couple of little comments I made about it. But holy smoke, my email address, an email address that I hadn't received any email on anything I had done up till the point that I did the short on that book. This book right here, Turmoil in the Toy Box. I hadn't received anything up to that point, right? So I make the couple comments that I make. And then all of a sudden, it's like I kicked your dog. It's like I set fire to your house. It's like all these comparing things to all these outlandish, crazy things that I could have done to you. Oh my gosh. The venom and vitriol, the hatred that I received in my little email address, the one right here. Okay, so yeah, I was blown away, completely shocked, and I am not going to go into all that right now. I won't. I'm going to briefly touch on it, but I'm not going to really go in depth into that or into this book until I actually do the full expanded description or whatever you would call it, the review of that book on my regular show at some point, Yesteryear and Beyond. Get your eyes on it. But what I am going to say is this. The book in and of itself, and I still stand by what I say, the book in and of itself, while it does have some merit, okay, and I'm going to say it's some very little merit, okay? Some very little merit, because it does bring up the fact, and it is a fact, that during the Reagan administration, there was a deregulation of when it came to the animation and toy industries, as far as what could and could not be put on television. And that kind of created a situation, actually it did create a situation where a lot of your animated shows, all your cartoons that you grew up watching, well, they were pretty much nothing more than commercials for all the products that were tied into them. Masters of the Universe, G.I. Joe, Transformers, Rainbow Bright, the Smurfs. Anything that had a toy connected to it, any of those cartoons, well, yeah, those companies were using these animated shorts. Yeah, animated shorts, nothing. They're just your Saturday morning cartoons, and also your afternoon cartoons. But they were using that medium to entice the kids to want to go to their parents and beg and plead, Mommy and Daddy, please, 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 can I have a Smurf? Can I have a G.I. Joe? Can I have a Barbie? Because the Barbie's so cool looking. Did anybody say that back then? Can I have a He-Man? and the Masters of the Universe figure. Can I have one? Can I have a Skeletor? You know, the companies knew what they were doing. So those kids were, they were enticing the children to run to their parents and beg them, please. And once they got one, and it was like, please, may I have another? And yeah, the parents, the parents that could afford it, and I'm sure they were annoyed by everything, constantly having their kids coming to them, can I have another? Can I have another? Can I have this? Can I have that? Without even having to go to the store. Because, a parent, they go to take their kid to the store is kind of like, don't ask me for anything, all right? We're here to do what I want to do. Don't ask me to buy you anything. But when the kids are watching on television, they don't even have to go to the stores. They are already just going into the living room, going into wherever the parents are, and already asking them, can I have this? Can I have that? So I can understand why there'd be some kind of backlash on that end against the cartoons. And that wasn't even, on a religious standpoint here. But, so that actually was just a little piece of truth that was injected into this book right here, okay? The problem that I have with this book is that the author, I don't know how well-meaning he was when he wrote it all those years ago. I don't know anything about this Phil Phillips. I have no idea. But the problem that I have is just the sheer crazy ideas that are injected into it. How the Smurfs and G.I. Joe and Masters of the Universe and anything that showed creatures or monsters were all the ideas for all of these characters that you grew up watching. They all were derived from satanic origins, demonic origins. And Mr. Phillips goes a long way to prove his point in all of these cases. I mean, look at this. We're talking about, come on. I mean, just look at the cover alone. I mean, you have G.I. Joe, you have Barbie, you have Rainbow Bright, for goodness sake, Cabbage Patch Kids, Care Bears, Masters of the Universe. Boy, does this book go off on Masters of the Universe. Dungeons and Dragons. Okay, that one set itself up, pretty easily for criticism. Yoda right here, Yoda from Star Wars. So all of these properties and more are covered in this book, and are covered in such a way that if you are not already skeptical of this kind of gosh, I'm gonna find it really difficult to hold back on this, but I consider this to be what I call fanatical, and I'm going to put this in a term because I know I'm going to get backlash on this term, because I'm pretty sure this is where all of the backlash against me began, with this term, fanatical Christian. Okay, I'm a Christian. I grew up a Christian. I went to a Christian school. Went to church on Fridays as well as Sundays. Try to live that Christian lifestyle as best as I could. I am no saint, but I still, even to this day, I just try to do what I'm trying to leave religion out of this specifically, but I'm just trying to live the best life I possibly can. And okay, I can't avoid it. Do unto others as I would have them do unto me, as much as possible. All right? So, when I say fanatical Christian, and I'm calling this fanatical Christian propaganda, I believe that this book, which in the upcoming short you're about to see eventually, where I mentioned that it takes a blowtorch to all of your childhood memories, all of your childhood, cartoons, all the things you grew up with. If you were allowed to partake in those things, yeah, it does more than that. It takes a machine gun to all of your memories. It takes a Triple H sledgehammer to all those childhood properties. It tries to decimate all of that. And the thing, I know about this book. I know about it. I've known about it since I was a kid, okay? I didn't come across it technically. I never found a copy of this. This is my original copy back from the 90s. When I found it in a bookstore. But when I was a kid and I was going to Christian school, my parents did not participate in that kind of fanatical belief system, all right? They already knew how to raise children. They already knew what was right and what was wrong. They did not need Dr. Spock. They did not need some kind of crazy guide to teach them how to raise their children, how to raise me. They didn't need something like this. And unfortunately, there were apparently a lot, because this book sold a lot at the time, but apparently there were a lot of families out there, a lot of parents that needed guidance. They didn't know where to turn. So they fell into the trap of Turmoil in the Toy Box. And there's a Saturday morning one too, and I'll get to that one day. I'm sure other people have already, done it, but so many parents out there that needed guidance, that needed to go to Dr. Spock, that needed to go to other avenues, that needed assistance on how to raise their kids correctly, especially if their kids weren't exactly being the nicest children on the block. Those parents got sucked into this kind of stuff. And I made a comment, and I call the whole thing, fanatical Christian. And I call this fanatical Christian propaganda. And what I mean by that is, while not all Christians are fanatical, and when I mean fanatical, I mean the ones who have crazy ideas, the ones who appropriate the Bible and appropriate the teachings and use them for their own reasons, for the things that they want to do, okay? Whether they're right or wrong, they latch on to certain, they cherry pick scripture and they'll use it for themselves, for their own purpose. That's fanaticism, okay? Straight up. Now, you can be a fanatic about anything. You can be a fanatic about comic books. You can be a fanatic about sports. You can be a fanatic about anything out there. You can be a fanatic about tiddlywinks. But it all depends on how far you go with your fanaticism. But when it comes to religion, believe me, I don't have to tell you this. All you have to do is look at history. All you have to do is even look as far back as the 70s and 80s. Go on YouTube. Go on YouTube and just type in your search engine, Christian fanaticism. Go in there and look. And just, look at all the wacky, crazy things that people have done in the name of God. In the name of the Judeo-Christian God. And it's nuts. A lot of things that just do not line up with Scripture, period. And I know there's so many people out there to say, well, how dare you? How dare you? How dare you attack my character? Why are you taking it personally? Why are you getting so nuts about it? Now, when I say nuts, I'm seriously mean nuts because I'm not kidding. When I say that in the cold open, when I say that my little email address blew up, and it blew up in a bad way, believe me. Hate mail. And I'm not going to go into any specifics at this point about it, but really, when you're being called a heretic, you're being called a Christian in name only, you're being called an atheist, you're being called a non-believer, you're being called the Antichrist. Now you tell me, who are the fanatics out there, right? Do normal, loving people act or react in this way, in this fashion? I don't think so. Not at all. But I tell you, I just can't believe this. This book is almost 40 years old. One more year, it will be. And when I was a kid, I have to backtrack a second because I kind of went off. Really ran off on that one. But let me pull it back and go back to when I was a kid and just say that I knew so many classmates, so many friends whose parents were not like mine. Okay, my parents weren't perfect, believe me, they weren't. They really had some flaws at times, but they did the best they could. But I'm telling you, the parents that got sucked into this, my poor friends, my poor classmates, they were completely, I'm going to use a word, bumfuzzled when they got home. They would go to school that morning. One morning, whatever morning, they would go to school, leaving all of their little trinkets, all of their toys, their action figures, comic books, whatever. They would leave those. They'd go to school. And then they'd come home thinking, okay, like every other day, they come home, they can go ahead and hang out and play with their stuff. And maybe take some of their things over to their friend's house and they could get together and play, you know, and play action figures or read comic books together. Well, didn't happen. Not at all. Not one bit. They would get home and they would be completely blown away because their parents had taken all their stuff. And I know, you think, yeah, you're full of it. You are just making this stuff up. No, I am not. Trust me. This is nuts. Believe me. I would call this is Nutsicism 101. But the parents would go in and remove all of the demonic content and either sell it, donate it, give it away to somebody. It didn't matter. They just wanted it out of their house, and they didn't want their children consuming any of this. And they were not allowed to watch any Saturday morning cartoons, any afternoon cartoons, no programming like that at all. It was because of this book. All right? It was because of this book. That's what kickstarted the whole thing, at least in my experience. And I never saw a copy of this thing. Not one time, but I kept hearing it, TURMOIL in the TOYBOX, because my friends would say it. Well, my parents have a copy of TURMOIL in the TOYBOX. They read that, and they took all my stuff away. And again, it wasn't until, it was in the 90s when I came across it in an old bookstore, and I thought, okay, I'll buy it. It was cheap. Even then, I think it was cheap. And then wow, after reading it, I thought, yeah, I want my money back. But I held on to it. I really did. I held on to it. And I've reread it over and over the years. And I don't know why, because it is what it is. As well as that Saturday morning book that he came up with as well. And I guess because it touches on things from my childhood, things that I grew up with. So, it does in a way, at first it really used to get me just riled up. But now, it's just making me shake my head. It makes me just, it makes me just laugh. Because how could people fall for this kind of stuff? But then again, how could people nowadays, even as of this decade, how can people who are upper echelon in their employment, who are bigwigs, who are college professors, as well as just, average people, how can they get caught up in cults? How? Explain that. Cults, fanaticism, they go hand in hand, pretty closely at times. So anyway, that's my whole deal on this. What you're about to see next is what started all this. And again, I will expand, and I know you're thinking, my gosh, you're going to expand on this even more on your show, and you've spent this much time talking about it now. I can imagine how long it's going to be on your show. Well, I'm actually going to do more of the, more in-depth talk about this thing than I am right here. But getting to the actual short, what you're about to see is episode 13. It was back on March 3rd of this year. And just like the book, it is entitled Turmoil in the Toybox. Enjoy. Alright, what can I find? Anything? Let's see. How about going down to the shelf that served me well last time? Wait, I have it. Right here. Yes, you'll do. Do you remember the song, It's All Been Done Before? Well, it's about to be done at least one more time, this time by me. You are looking at the cover to Turmoil in the Toybox, the infamous book written by Reverend Pastor Evangelist Phil Phillips. No, not Phil Phillips of American Idol fame. This Phil Phillips right here, at least as he looked at the age of 24 or 25, whichever the case might be, back in 1986 when this book first saw publication. It was his first book, and as far as I'm concerned, it could have been his last book. I fortunately never had to deal with this personally because my parents did not fall for this kind of stuff, and they knew how to raise children without the help of things like this. But unfortunately, there were lots of other parents out there that just were so strict, and they would reach out for anything they could to use as a guideline to help them raise their kids. I went to school with quite a few friends and classmates, and they would go to school thinking when they got home, and they would go home and play with their action figures and their toys, and then they get there and find that their action figures and toys have all just disappeared, and their parents have sold them off or donated them or given them away or whatever, but they were no longer there. I felt really bad for those kids. But if you were a fan of these properties right here, this book just demolishes them. It really does. It takes a blowtorch to everything you liked back then. Whether you're a boy or a girl, we're talking about G.I. Joe, Barbie, the Cabbage Patch Kids, Masters of the Universe, Yoda, Dungeons and Dragons, Rainbow Bright. Let's see, it's My Little Pony down there. The Cabbage Patch Kids I already mentioned. Look. It does have some valid points in it. Few and far between, but it does. I have to be fair. But unfortunately, the book does suffer from a lot of very extreme Christian fanaticism. I'm not kidding. I'm not. And this is coming from a Christian. So, anyhow, join me on a future episode of Yesteryear and Beyond. Keep an eye out for that. And for now, I'm out of here. Adios. Get your eyes on it.